Hello students, today's topic is the Z transform. Now, in case of the continuous time signals, the transformation method was the Laplace transformation, and there was another special transformation method, that was the Fourier transformation. Now, in case of the discrete time signals, the most popular as well as most easiest way of transformation is the Z transform. In case of the Z transform, we have to transform the time domain signal to the Z domain. What is Z? Z is nothing but a complex variable. You know that complex variable Z can be represented as u plus jv, where u and v both are real numbers and j is the complex variable. Now, and this total thing u plus jv is a complex variable which is represented by z. Now, you can obtain the magnitude of the complex variable z by taking the root of the u square plus v square. You know that it is the magnitude of z, and phase or argument of the z can be obtained, which is notified by omega equal to tan inverse v by u. Okay. Now, the range of the u as well as v will be starting from minus infinity to plus infinity. That means it can take any value. Therefore, the magnitude of the r, that is the polar magnitude of z, is nothing but having the range of 0 to infinity. And in polar form, and as well as omega has the range of 0 to 2 pi. That means the entire circle. In polar form, z can be represented as r e to the power j omega. Okay, where r is the magnitude and omega is the angle. Now, in the complex plane, where this vertical axis is the complex axis and the horizontal axis is the real axis, it is u and it is jv, and this is minus u minus jv. Okay. Now, this radius vector is represented by the r, or the radius, magnitude of the complex variable, and the angle between this radius and the x-axis, the real axis, positive real axis, this angle is the omega. That means the argument of that complex variable or the complex number. Now, if we consider the normalized case, that means magnitude is equal to 1. Okay, that means this is one unit circle, r value is equal to 1, then this z is used for the z transformation. That means for the z transformation, z is equal to 1 multiplied by e to the power j omega. That means z equal to e to the power j omega. It is an representative one unit circle. Now, definition of the z transformation, xn, which is in the time domain dt signal, which can be transformed to capital X z, that is z domain dt signal. Okay. Now, two-sided z transform, which is the generalized z transform, xz, you can transform xn into the xz domain by using the z transformation. It is the notation capital Z within second bracket xn. That means you are transforming the time domain signal into z domain, which is defined as summation of n starting from minus infinity up to plus infinity xn z to the power minus n. Okay, so it is an infinite series, both sided infinite series. It is the z transformation of xn, and it is two-sided or generalized. If you want to do the one-sided, that means for only the causal signals, then this same thing will occur, only the index will start from 0 up to infinity. Okay, only the right side of the axis, time axis, has to be considered, because the signal itself is a causal signal. Now, inverse z transform, you can get back the xn, that means time domain signal, from the z domain signal by using the inverse z transform, z to the power minus 1. That is notified, it is notifying the inverse z transform. So, by using this particular control integral, by solving this control integral, you can get back the time domain signal from the z domain signal. Okay, but there are various other easier methods by which you can do the inverse z transform. It is one particular method. I will discuss all of those later. Now, geometric progression, you may have face different problems within this z transformation topic, which can use the different important formulas regarding the geometric progression. For the geometric progression, two very important rules are there. If it is an infinite GP series, suppose consider an infinite GP series, C is a complex constant. That means this value is a constant, but it may be the complex number or real number. Okay, magnitude of C should be 0 to 1. That means it should be a necessarily fraction. Then if you want to perform this particular, you want to calculate the value of this infinite series starting from summation n starting from 0 to infinity, Cn. C is a complex constant, sorry, not variable, complex constant, whose magnitude is in between 0 and 1. Then it should be equal to 1 by 1 minus C. That is a simple rule which can be proved very easily by using the rules of the geometric progression. Now for the finite GP, you know that from the 12th standard mathematics knowledge, algebraic knowledge, that if C is not equal to 1, then n starting from 0, n minus 1, capital N minus 1, suppose n number of C to the power n values you have to add up, then this value will be equal to 1 minus C to the power capital N by 1 minus C. It is simple, you know that. And if C value is equal to 1, then this particular C to the power n will be always equal to 1. Okay, and if you do the summation, then you are actually adding up capital N number of ones. Okay, so what will be that? Capital N number of ones will be equal to n. So these two you have to remember in order to solve the Z transformation problems. Now, what is region of convergence? Region of convergence is very important for Z transformation or for any transformation theory. Region of convergence means within the complex plane, which is the particular region in which the Z transform of a particular signal will exist, and beyond that region Z transform should not exist or may not exist. Okay, that is the region of convergence. It may happen that for a particular signal the entire Z plane is the region of convergence. That means there will not be any point or any region where the Z transformation will not exist. It may happen. Or for any special case, it may happen that certain finite area is the region of convergence where Z transform will exist, and beyond that Z transform may not exist. Okay, so let me examine some cases. Suppose you have a finite duration right-sided signal, that means causal signal, okay, and finite duration, remember. So how can you represent it? Xn, it is a right-sided causal signal and finite duration. Suppose I am considering the samples x0, x1, x2 up to xn minus 1. That means it is a finite duration signal having the number of samples equal to capital N. Okay, and since there is no up arrow given, then by default you have to consider up arrow is here. That means origin will start from here since it is the x0. Okay, now since it is a causal signal, you can do the Z transformation by using the Z transformation for finite duration signal by using this formula. As I mentioned earlier, xz will be equal to summation of n equal to 0 up to n minus 1 xn z to the power minus n. Okay, now elaborate it. For n equal to 0, x0, this will be x0 z to the power minus 0. So z to the power minus 0 equal to 1. Okay, so only x0 will be there. Next term will be plus, next term will be for n equal to 1, it will be x1 z to the power minus 1, this one, next term will be x2 z to the power minus 2. In this way, the last term will be x n minus 1 z to the power minus n minus 1. Okay, so if you write, for simplicity, if you write these all terms by this way, that means first one will be x0 plus second one x1 z to the power minus 1 means 1 by z, so write it like that. Next one z to the power minus 2 means 1 by z square, so x2 by z square, in this way. So all terms has been written in this way. And now see that it is the z transformation of this signal, finite duration right sided signal, it is the z transformation. Okay, now from the common sense you can say that this particular z transformation will be finite only if z is not equal to 0. Is it? If z equal to 0, see that all these terms will become infinite, so z transform will not converge, so you can say z transform will not exist. So for only z equal to 0, this z transform is not existed. For any other value of z, this z transform will be finite and you can say it will exist. Okay, so region of convergence for this case will be the all the complex plane except z equal to 0. It is the region of convergence. So z exists for all z except z equal to 0. Okay, so in one sentence you can say for right sided causal signal, finite duration right sided causal signal, the region of convergence of the z transformation is entire z plane except z equal to 0. Similarly, if you examine for infinite duration left sided, that means anti-causal signal, then what will be your signal sequence? Xn will be equal to starting from x minus n minus 1. Okay, and it will end at x equal to x0. Okay, see that it is the sample at x equal to 0, it is the sample at n equal to minus 1, it is the sample at n equal to minus 2, n equal to minus 3, up to n equal to minus n minus 1. Okay, so n number of samples are there which are all in the left side of the amplitude axis. Okay, so it is the left sided signal, anti-causal signal, and finite duration because its length is n. Again, if you do the z transformation xz, it should start from minus n minus 1 because samples will start from minus n minus 1 and it will end at 0 because it is left sided. Right side of the y axis will not have any value because all the samples are 0. Now it will be xn z to the power minus n. Okay, if you put those, first sample will be x, in place of n you have to put minus n minus 1. Okay, so x minus n minus 1 z to the power minus n, here in place of n you have to put minus n minus 1, capital N minus 1, so minus minus plus, it will be z to the power n minus 1. Okay, plus next sample will be there. In this way it will end at the x minus 1 z plus x0. Okay, in this way it will end. And look at here at this z transformation, in this z transformation all the z values are having the positive indexes. Okay, so this particular z transformation will exist only when, that means this value will be finite only when z is not equal to infinity. Okay, for all other z values this will exist. So region of convergence will be overall complex plane except z equal to infinity. Okay, except z equal to infinity. So that means for the right sided signal or causal signal, entire region of convergence was entire z plane except z equal to 0, and left sided anti-causal signal finite duration, the region of convergence will be entire z plane except z equal to infinity. Okay, but now from the common sense, tell me, if the signal is finite duration but both sided, That means it is not right sided or left sided. Both sides may have some values of some samples. A number of samples are in total. Okay, then what will happen, that particular both sided signal will have the property of causal signal as well as property of the anti-causal signal, because it is made of one causal signal plus another anti-causal signal. So for the causal signal, the z equal to 0 point should be excluded from the ROC, and for the anti-causal signal, z equal to infinity point should be excluded from the ROC. So for that case, your Z transformation ROC will be the entire Z plane except Z equal to 0 and Z equal to infinity. Okay, it should be remembered. Now I am coming to the infinite duration signals. First, let me consider the infinite duration right sided or causal signal. Okay, so let me consider a special form of signal, very simple. Xn equal to R1 to the power n. R1 is a constant value. Okay, it is a constant value, real constant. Now R1 to the power n, it is the signal, and it is defined for all n greater or equal to 0. That means it is necessarily causal signal. Okay, now do the Z transformation. Since it is the infinite duration signal, the Z transformation start from minus infinity to infinity. Okay, xn z to the power minus 1. Now since it is the causal signal, the samples are existing only at the right side of the y-axis. So this n equal to minus infinity up to 0, they should be excluded. Only the n should start from 0. Okay, so n is starting at 0 and up to plus infinity, it may have the samples. Okay, now in place of xn, you are putting R1 to the power n. If you put that and take common, R1 z to the power minus 1 whole n, it will be that, because it is z to the power minus n and it is R1 to the power n. So it can be written in this way. Okay, so now this is one infinite GP series. As I mentioned, infinite GP series, this value should be equal to 1 by 1 minus R1 z minus 1, because as a whole this particular thing is a complex number. Okay, so this can be considered as C, where as I mentioned here, see that it was the formula by which you are getting this one, you are getting this one. Okay, but condition was that this value should be a fraction value necessarily. That means it may have the value in between 0 to 1. That means this one, magnitude of this one should be 0 to 1. That means it should be necessarily a fractional number. Okay, if it is the fractional, then consider this one. Okay, magnitude of R1 z to the power minus 1 less than 1. It is the condition. Okay, less than 1. That means it is less than 1 by changing the direction. That means this one has to be taken here. Sorry, this one has to be taken here. You can obtain this one. That means magnitude of z is greater than magnitude of R1. It is nothing but if magnitude of z equal to something, equal to magnitude of something, that means a constant, that is nothing but a equation of a circle. Okay, but if I say magnitude of z is greater than R1, that is something, that means it should represent a region. First let me draw the circle. Magnitude of z equal to R1. This circle is this one. Okay, so its radius is R1 and this one the circle. Okay, but the region of convergence of this particular signal is representing magnitude of z greater than R1. That means the region of convergence should be outside of this circle. Okay, that means it should be the exterior of the circle z equal to R1, or magnitude of z equal to R1. Okay, so it is the exterior of the circuit. ROC of a infinite duration causal signal should be exterior of a circle. Here it is R1. Here it is its radius is R1. Okay, similarly you can examine the same case for a infinite duration left sided or anti-causal signal. For that case I am defining it as Rn equal to R2 to the power n. Similar kind of signal, but it is defined for only n less or equal to 0. Okay, that means it is a left-sided or anti-causal signal. If you do that, that means if you want to find out the Z transformation of that, put the value of xn here, R2 to the power n, Z to the power minus 1, and here since it is a left-sided signal, the index should be start from minus infinity up to 0, because beyond 0 in the right side there is no sample. Okay, now change the index, reverse the index. In place of n you are putting minus n. Okay, so reversing the index, it will become 0 to plus infinity, because you are putting n minus n in place of n. So in place of n you are putting minus n, so R2 to the power n will become R2 to the power minus n, and Z to the power minus n will become Z to the power plus n. Okay, because you are reversing the index actually. So it is your now the infinite GP series, and similarly it can be represented by this way. Okay, and by using the formula of GP series, you can write the Z transformation of this signal is nothing but 1 by 1 minus R2 to the power minus 1 Z. Okay, and necessary condition is that this particular number's magnitude should be in between 0 and 1. Okay, it should be a fraction number. Now from this condition you are getting R2 to the power 1 Z magnitude should be less than 1. Okay, from that you can write Z magnitude should be less than R2. Okay, again I can say Z equal to R2, or magnitude of Z equal to R2 will represent a circle which is having the radius of R2. Okay, and this particular region is representing the Z magnitude should be less than R2. What does it mean? The entire region should be inside of that circle. Okay, because it is less than sign, but for that case it was the greater than sign, so it was the exterior of the circle and it is the interior of the circle. So for infinite duration anti-causal or left-sided signal, its ROC should be interior of a circle. Okay, interior of a circle having a finite radius. Okay, now consider if I say we have to consider an infinite duration two-sided non-causal signal, that means it will have both the properties of causal as well as anti-causal signals. It is a summation of a causal signal, this one, and an anti-causal signal, this one. Okay, for the causal signal it should have the ROC exterior of the circle having the radius of R1, and the anti-causal signal, this one, second term, will have the ROC interior. It was exterior of the circle having the radius of R1, and its ROC should be interior of the circle having the radius of R2. Now consider the case where R2, this value, is greater than R1. Then it is the circle representing the radius R2, and the inner circle, it is the representing the radius of R1. So for the first case, the ROC should be outside of this R1 circle, smaller circle, and for the R2, the ROC should be inside of the bigger circle of the R2. So what was the common region of convergence? Common region of convergence should be interior of the circle having the radius of R2, but exterior of the circle having the radius of R1, because both the signals are present here. That's why you have to consider the common region only. But this particular signal will not have any ROC if R1 is greater than R2. See that if R1 value, this circle, inner circle, is bigger than R2, then the first signal will have the ROC outer than that R1 circle which was bigger, and the ROC of the second signal will be interior of the R2 circle which will be smaller. So for that case there was no common region of convergence. So the entire signal, this one, will be totally inconvergent. Okay, that means ROC will not exist. Z transformation will not exist for that case. For this case, Z transformation will exist only if R2 is greater than R1. Remember, okay? So it is the case of the two-sided infinite duration signal. Now let me show you some examples. Suppose this one. You have to do the Z transformation. It is very easy to understand. Its Z transformation will be 3 plus 2 multiplied by Z to the power minus 1 plus 5 multiplied by Z to the power minus 2 plus 7 to the power Z to the power multiplied by Z to the power minus 3. That will be the Z transformation of this causal signal. Okay, and what will be the ROC for the causal signal? Finite duration causal signal, you know that ROC will be entire Z plane except Z equal to 0. For this one, it is anti-causal signal, so you can do the Z transformation and you can conclude that since it is the anti-causal signal, its ROC should be entire Z plane except Z equal to minus infinity. For this case, it is a both-sided finite duration signal, so you can say the ROC should be entire Z plane except Z equal to 0 and Z equal to minus infinity. Okay, now example of infinite duration signal. Suppose it is a signal unit step function. Okay, you know that unit step function definition, un equal to 1 for all n greater or equal to 0 and 0 for all n less than 0. So it is nothing but a causal signal. Okay, if you do the Z transformation, all these values will be 1, so that means it should start from 0, one-sided Z transform, 0 to infinity Z to the power minus n. Okay, if you do that, Z to the power minus 1 to the power n. Okay, if you now apply the formula of GP series, it will be 1 minus 1 by 1 minus Z to the power minus 1. Now this Z to the power minus 1 should be in between 0 to infinity, so Z to the power minus 1 should be less than 1. Okay, or you can say this Z to the power minus 1 should be less than 1, or you can say Z magnitude should be greater than 1. That means the ROC should be a region which should be exterior to the unit circle. Since our radius value is 1, it is the unit circle. Okay, so ROC should be exterior to that unit circle. Okay, and if you consider this kind of anti-causal signal, see that it is an anti-causal signal. It will exist for only left side of the y-axis. Right side samples will be all 0. If you do that, if you do this example, you can find out it will become it will have this kind of condition for the ROC. Okay, Z magnitude should be less than 0.8. Suppose here you are obtaining 0.8. That means its ROC will be interior to the circle having the radius of 0.8. Interior to the circle having the radius of 0.8. Okay, since it is the left-sided signal. For infinite duration both-sided signals, you will obtain one common region. You may obtain a common region if the radius of the anti-causal signal is bigger than the radius of the causal signal, but for the reverse case there will be no ROC. Okay, now properties of Z transform. Linear property, remember that Z transform, this particular transformation method is a linear operation. Okay, so if you examine the linearity, Z transform of x1n, if the Z transform of x1n is capital Z1n, Z1z, x1z, and Z transform of x2n, if it is equal to capital X2z, then you can have the linear summation of linear weighted summation of the time domain signals. Its Z transform should be the linear weighted summation of the individual Z transformations. Okay, so it will obey the principle of superposition. So it is the linear property. Shifting property, remember that for the two-sided signal you have to remember the shifting property. Z x n plus minus m, if you shift it, if you give a right shift or left shift, simply and the Z domain, if you have to multiply by Z to the power plus minus m. That means if your signal is shifted by plus m amount, okay, that means time advance, x n plus m, then your z transformation will be xz multiplied by z to the power plus m. If it is delayed, that means x n minus m, then its z transformation will be xz multiplied by z to the power minus m. Okay, in this way, for the one-sided signal, it will have an extra term. You can verify it, what will be that extra term, but it is not required for your most of the problems. Okay, for multiplication by n in the time domain, it is nothing but the differentiation in the z domain. Okay, that means if you have a signal xn and its z transformation is capital Xz, then if in the time domain the signal is multiplied by an n, in the z domain it will be simply differentiated. Okay, z transformation of n xn will be equal to minus z differentiation with respect to z xz. Okay, remember this property because it will be required for your inverse z transformation problems. Okay, multiplication by a to the power n, that means scaling in the z domain. If in the time domain signal is multiplied by certain number a to the power n, in the z domain it will be scaled in the z domain, x z to the power a, sorry, z by a. Okay, remember in the time domain if you multiply a signal by a to the power n, in the z domain it will become x z by a. Okay, next, time reversal, simply it is nothing but this property is a special case in not this property, it is the special case I will discuss later. That means if the signal is time folded, that means xn is becoming x minus n, in the z domain it will be x z to the power minus 1. Okay, you have to remember these properties. Conjugation in the time domain, if it is conjugated in the frequency in the z domain also it will be conjugated, but the z will be also conjugated. Remember, convolution theorem, multiplication in the time domain, sorry, convolution in the time domain will become multiplication in the z domain. It is same as for the Laplace transformation as well as for the Fourier transformation. Remember that for all transformations, time domain convolution means z domain multiplication. It is most important property of any transformation. Okay, for z transformation, remember that. Okay, next one, this property is not very important, but remember that. Now I am showing you Parseval's theorem. Parseval's theorem means summation of n minus infinity to plus infinity. If you do that, you have two different signals. One is x1n, another is x2n conjugate of that. Okay, if you want to do the operation, you will have this contour integral, and it is called the Parseval's theorem. You have to remember this because multiple choice questions, for 4 options you may have to choose the right option. Okay, that's why you have to remember particular this equation. Next two properties, one is the initial value theorem, another is the final value theorem. Most important theorems in order to do some very short numerical problems. Okay, if xn is a signal it is a right sided signal, see that it n is starting from 0 up to infinity. If it is that, and xn's z transformation is capital Xz, then if the xz is given to you, okay, xz is given to you, you have to find out the first sample, the initial value of the time domain signal, that means x0, first sample of the time domain signal. Then what will be the procedure for you? Procedure will be simply you have the xz which is given in your problem. You can inverse z transform it to the time domain xn, find out xn, and first sample of the xn will be your answer. But it is a lengthy process. Okay, most simplest process is the using initial value theorem. X0 will be always equal to limit z tending to infinity xz. Okay, if you find out this value, this will be simply the first sample value of the time domain signal. Okay, it is called the initial value theorem. Use it for all such problems where you have to find out the first sample of the time domain signal where the Z transform version is given to you. Simply, if you want to find out the last sample, that means the final sample of a signal where the Z transformation of that sample is given to you, final sample means x infinity. Okay, that is the n tending to infinity. For that case, you have to find out what will be the finite sample of the time domain signal if xz is given to you. You have to solve this limit. That means limit z tending to 1 within bracket 1 minus z to the power 1 xz. If you find out that for the given xz, you will obtain the final value of the time domain signal. So remember this initial value and final value theorems, which will be remembered, which will have to be used for the short numerical problems. Okay, and remember another very important property, which is the convolution property. Convolution in the time domain should be the multiplication in the z domain. That's why all the calculations in the z domain will be much easier as compared to the time domain calculations. For any particular problem, if you want to find, suppose a difference equation is given to you, you have to find out that difference equation. So in the time domain, in the n domain, solution of the difference equation is very lengthy. You have to find out the homogeneous solution, particular solution, add up them, or you have to find out the zero initial solution or zero state solution. After that, you have to add up them in order to obtain the final solution. But in the if you do the reverse thing, that means first the difference equation will be translated to or transformed to the z domain. After that, from that find out the solution and in the z domain, and reverse transform, that means the inverse transform that z domain solution to the time domain solution, we will get the solution of that difference equation in much easier way, because in the z domain calculations is very easy, because you need not do any convolution type of complex operation. Here you have to only do the subtraction, multiplication, division and addition. Okay, other than it you should not do anything, or you need not do anything in the z domain. Okay, but in time domain you may have faced different operations like integration, differentiations, convolutions, etc. So z domain calculations are preferable always. That's why these transformation theories come into the consideration. Now, poles and zeros in the rational fraction of z. Rational fraction means if you have a xz, it may have this kind of form. That means in the numerator it may have nz, one polynomial, and in the denominator another polynomial is there, dz. Okay, if you have this kind of form, suppose in the numerator nz is equal to b0 plus b1 z to the power minus 1 b plus b2 z to the power minus 2 up to b m z to the power minus m. That means m number of terms are there, so m degree polynomial is there in the numerator. In the denominator another polynomial is there where coefficients are a0, a1, a2, different coefficients, and it is a simply n degree polynomial. See that up to z to the power n. So n plus 1 number of terms are there, n degree polynomial. So take common z to the power m from this one, sorry, b0 z to the power m from the numerator, and a0 z to the power n from the denominator. Okay, so b0 by a0 is taken here. You have taken common the z to the power minus m from the numerator and z to the power minus n from the denominator. Write down the entire thing like this. The first term b0 is taken common, so it will become 1, z to the power minus m will taken common, so that will become z to the power m. Okay, so in this way the all other terms can be written here like this way. Okay, now if you consider m and n are equal, for simplicity if you consider m and n are same, then z to the power minus m, z to the power minus n, both will be cancelled. Okay, and this one will be nothing but a constant. You can say it is g is the scaling factor. Okay, and this one is a quadratic equation of degree of m. This is one quadratic equation of z of degree of n. Okay, you can factorize this one into the m number of factors, and you can factorize the denominator in the n number of factors. Write down in this way. Suppose first factor is z minus z1. z1 is one root of this polynomial. Z multiplied by z minus z2, another root of the polynomial, in this way up to z minus zn, because n and m are equal. Okay, so n number of factors are there in the numerator, again n number of factors will be there in the denominator. Z minus p1, z minus p2, z minus p, it would be pn. Okay, so n number of factors in the numerator, n number of factors in the denominator. Now remember that the roots here z1, z2, zn, etc., z1, z2, z3 up to zn, all these n roots are they present in the numerator, where if any of those roots, suppose z1 or z2 or z3 up to zn, any of those if becomes 0, then this entire thing, this entire thing exit will become 0. That's why these numerator roots are called the zeros. Remember, these are called the zeros. And if any of the roots of the denominator factors, that means p1 or p2 or p3 up to pn, if any of those roots are become 0, then what will happen? This entire thing will become infinity, will tend to infinity. That's why the roots in the denominator are called the poles. Remember, so roots in the numerators are called the zeros, and roots in the denominators are called the poles. Can you find out the zeros and poles for this equation, for this particular fraction? See that in the numerator there is a polynomial of degree of 2, and in the denominator also another polynomial is there of degree of 2. Proceed in the similar way. You have taken common this one, and you have obtained this particular scaling factor. Okay, after that, by simplifying, by factorizing these two numerator and denominator quadratic equations, you can have this one and this one two zeros. That means 0.8 will be 1 0, 0.2 will be another 0. See that 0 1, z1 is 0.8, one root of the numerator, another root of the numerator is 0.2. And in the denominator, two roots are, this one is one root, p1 is minus, because z minus of this term will be there, so p1 will be equal to this one and p2 will be equal to this one. Okay, so can you plot these zeros and poles in the complex domain? It is the v axis, it is the y axis. Simply if you plot the zeros, 0.8, it should be somewhere here, okay, in the positive real axis, and 0.2 means it may be somewhere here. These are notified by small circles because these are the zeros. Okay, and these two are the poles. Poles are not actually denoted by cross sign. These two are the poles. Okay, it is z1, it is z2, or it is z1, it is z2. Poles are p1 and p2. Say that p1 should be go in the minus real direction by 0.5, and after that again minus 0.5. This one is actually, it should be p1, actually it should be p1, and for p2 go again minus 0.5 through the real axis here, and go in positive direction, plus 0.5, it should be P2 actually. Okay, correct those accordingly. It should be P2, it should be P1. Okay, remember that for poles, if there is a complex pole, there must be the uh, complex conjugate pole also. See that this pole is nothing but the complex conjugate of these two, so they should be the complex conjugate pairs. For all other pole zero equations, you may find that if there are real poles, there may be single real poles or multiple real poles, separate real poles. But if there are any complex pole, there must be the complex conjugate pole also. Okay, so partial fraction, you already know that how can you factorize anything into partial fractions. Suppose I am considering the ROC of the rational function of z. Okay, rational function, you know that how can you find out the rational functions. Now consider a causal signal. Causal signal r1 to the power n un, r2 to the power n un, r3 to the power n un. It is a simple causal signal because all of them have been multiplied by uns. Okay, so the z transformation of this term will have this kind of form. This term, which has been already shown earlier, this will be the form of the z transform of this one, and this will be the form of the same forms. Okay, only the radius values are different. Now the upper, that means the numerator, will be actually z cube, which is notified by nz, and the denominator will have three factors. Okay, roots of those factors are r1, r2 and r3. And if remember, r1, r2, r3 are three poles are there, and for the first term the region of convergence should be z magnitude greater than r1. Next term should be z magnitude greater than r2. Third one will be z magnitude greater than r3. But remember that the overall ROC, and it is given that r3 is the greatest one, r2 will be the middle one, and r1 is the smallest one. Remember, overall ROC will be the ROC of the biggest one, because if you consider the ROC of the smallest one, that is the circle having the radius of r1, the first term will have the ROC just outside of this smallest circle. The second one will have the just outside of the middle circle. Okay, see that for this case the common ROC will be this one. Common ROC will be the common ROC will be the ROC of the R2, that means the second one, because in middle of R1 and R2, ROC of R1 is okay, but there is no ROC of R2 lower than R2. That's why the exterior of the R2 circle will be the common ROC between first two terms. Similarly, if you consider the third term, its ROC should be greater than the R3, that means the exterior of the biggest circle, and the common ROC in between all these three terms will be exterior to the bigger circle, because in between then there is no common region of convergence. For the anti-causal signal, again, if you examine, three signals are there, all of them are anti-causal signals having the similar form of Z transformation. Three poles are there, R1, R2 and R3, and if this is the relation, then that means the smallest ROC will have the first one, that means the smallest circle's radius is the first circle, that means R1, middle one is R2 and largest one is the R3. Then you can draw the three circles. Remember that all of these cases the ROC will be the interior of those corresponding circles. Okay, and for that case only the interior of the smallest circle will be common to all of them. That's why it will be the interior of the smallest circle. Okay, so remember that for the for this kind of signal having three terms, the ROC will be for the causal case, ROC will be exterior to the largest circle, and for the anti-causal signal, the ROC will be exterior to the smallest, interior to the smallest circle. Okay. For non-causal signal, you can examine it will be in between or something, somebody here. Okay. Inverse Z transformation. Remember that inverse Z transformation have three methods of solution. First one is called the direct evaluation of the contour integral. Contour integral means, which I had shown in the first page. It was the contour integral, okay, by which you can get back the time domain signal from the Z domain signal. If the Z domain signal is given, you can do the inverse Z transform by using direct solution of this contour integral, which is very difficult. Okay, so try to avoid it. Nobody will ask you to do some Z transformation by using the direct evaluation or something. Methods will not be mentioned. Okay, you have to use any of them. Second was the partial fraction expansion method. For the partial fraction expansion, you know that how can you do the partial fraction expansion, and after expanding each for each term, you have to apply the properties of this transformation, and corresponding time domain signal you can obtain. Okay, I suggest you to go through the examples for this method only. That is the from the book of Nagorkani. Go through the examples corresponding to this particular method, partial fraction expansion method of inverse Z transformation. Okay, and that will be the preparation for your semester examination for this topic. And the last one, the power series method, it is another method easier than the first method, but complex than the second method. Okay, you can also go through this also, but I suggest you have to prepare all the examples for the second method. Next is the analysis of LTI DT system by using the Z transformation. By using the Z transformation, if you have the time domain difference equation for a LTI DT system like this, if you do the Z transformation of entire of this, finally you will obtain a rational ratio in between the output and input. That means the Z transform of the input, it is Z capital XZ, and Z transformation of output is capital YZ. If you have the ratio, it will be like that. It will be like that. Just go through this derivation. I will supply you these notes, and if you go through this derivation, you can obtain this will be like that. Okay, it is nothing but in the numerator you will have a polynomial, and in the denominator you will have another polynomial. Okay, number of poles, number of zeros may not be equal. For number of if you factorize them, you will have m number of factors in the numerator, n number of factors in the denominator. Okay, this z1, z2, z3 up to zm, all the m number of zeros, and p1, p2 up to pn, these are all n number of poles. Okay, you can obtain for any fraction given, and g is the scaling factor. Now remember, what is impulse response? What was impulse response? Impulse response was for any DT system or any continuous time system also, impulse response was the response of the system for the impulse, unit impulse as input. Okay, so it was notified by Hn, and you know that convolution of arbitrary input signal with your Hn impulse response will give you the output or response of the system. Okay, if you do the Z transformation of both sides, you can say Yn will become Yz, simple, but the convolution of two signals in the time domain should be the multiplication of these individual signals in the Z domain. Okay, it was the property which I have told you to remember. It was the convolution property. The convolution in the time domain should be the multiplication in the Z domain. Okay, capital XZ is the Z transformation of Xn, and capital hz is the z transformation of hn. Okay, so if you multiply them in the z domain, you will have the same operation as convolution in the time domain. Okay, now from that find out hz, which is the z transformation of the impulse response. It is nothing but the yz by xz. Yz by xz means this one. Okay, which can be represented by this pole zero form. Okay, it is the yz by xz ratio of the z transformation of output and z transformation of the input signals. It is the pole zero representation of it. This is called the transfer function. Remember, transfer function is nothing but the z transformation of the impulse response of any system. So z transformation of impulse response is the transfer function. Remember, so impulse response and z transformations are z transform pairs. If you do the z transformation of impulse response, you will get the transfer function. If you do the inverse z transform of the transfer function, you will get the impulse response. Remember this thing. And convolution and deconvolution in the z domain, it is very easier to understand. Convolution means in the time domain you have to convolute x1n and x2n. Okay, two signals are there, you can convolute them, but by using the z transformation you can do the convolution much easier way. Initially z transform the x1n, you will get capital X1z. Similarly, z transform the x2n, you will get the capital X2z. Okay, after that, instead of having the convolution in the time domain, just multiply them in the z domain, x1z and x2z, just multiply them. Okay, after multiplying, what will you obtain? You will obtain yz, and inverse z transform of this yz will be nothing but the convolution of these two signals as per the convolution theorem. Okay, so it is an indirect process but much easier process, because you should not do the convolution operation by graphical method or tabular method or analytical method or by using the matrix method, etc. Those was very very lengthy jobs. That's why for the competitive exams, always go for the Z transformation method. First, two signals are given in the time domain. Individually get the Z transformation of those individual signals, multiply them in the Z domain, and inverse Z transform of that multiplication. That will give you the convolution. Okay. What is the Z convolution? Now, convolution was two signals are given, convolution in between them you have to find out. Deconvolution means in between two signals, one signal is given to you and convolution between two signal is given to you. You have to find out the other signal, which is very difficult job in the time domain, because x1 convolution x2, which was equal to yn. Okay, now yn is given to you and x2 is given to you, but you have to find out x1n. In the time domain, how can you find out? Very difficult. You have to differentiate both sides, and after that you have to do very difficult jobs. Very easier way, see that you have the expression of x2 and y. Just take the Z transformation of both of them, you will get the Z domain of x2 and Z domain of y. After that, you know that yz was equal to multiplication of xz and yz, x2z, x1z and x2z as per the convolution property. Convolution of these two is nothing but multiplication in the z domain, so it is known to you. Now from that, if you find out x1z, it is nothing but yz divided by x2z, which is already known to you because these two are given and you have already obtained the z transformation of individual signals, these two, and just put them here. If you do putting them here, you will obtain the x1z, and after that do the inverse z transform, you will get the x1n. It is called the deconvolution. That means finding out any of the convolution component if the convolution is given and other signal is given. Okay, so it is called the deconvolution. Next is the stability in the Z domain. In the time domain, I have already discussed in my earlier lecture that stability, BBO stability, or the bounded input bounded output stability, was defined by for any system, it is bounded input bounded output if and only if summation of plus infinity to minus infinity modulo of hn, that means the impulse response, if this particular expression is less than infinity. Okay, and you have to find out the same condition for the Z domain also. So consider you have a typical impulse response of this one, infinite duration impulse response, a to the power n un. Okay, put it here in place of hn, you have put this one. Okay, so from here it is a causal signal, so that's why the index will start from 0 to infinity, a to the power n. So it is a simple GP series. If your a value is in between 0 to 1, this one will converge, this particular thing will converge, that means this will have a finite value, and for n magnitude of a greater than 1, this should not converge, it should be a non-convergent series, and it should value unstable, it should be unstable and its value should be infinity. Okay, so for hz, that means for any transfer function of the particular system, which is the Z transform of the impulse response, Z transform of impulse response is given to you like this way, this one, it is nothing but Z divided by Z minus a. It has a pole at Z equal to a, see that it is a factor Z equal to a, it is the root of this factor, so that means at a it should have a pole. And as per the earlier discussion, this magnitude of a should be less than 1. Okay, it should be less than 1 in order to this particular series to be convergent. So that means magnitude of a should be less than 1, pole should be inside of the circle, this one, unit circle, and if the magnitude of a is greater than 1, then it should not be stable. Okay, so remember that for the stable system, pole should be lie inside the unit circle. That means your pole, this one, Z equal to a, this a value should be less than 1. It is the property, because you have already seen that a value should be less than 1 from here. Okay, from here you have already seen. So that means if it is unit circle, if it is the unit circle, your pole value should be lie here or here inside of the unit circle, not the outside of the unit circle. If the outside of the, it is outside of the unit circle, that means magnitude of a is greater than 1, which will make this particular GP series to be non-convergent, which is not desirable. This should be convergent, that means a should be less than 1, that means your pole should be should include the unit circle. Okay, inside of the unit circle. Now ROC of the stable system, you know that the Z transformation of impulse response is nothing but the transfer function. Let us consider Z is equal to 1. Okay, let us consider this Z equal to 1, so it will become the summation of all samples of hz, small hz. Okay, take the magnitude of both sides, you will obtain this one. Okay, and you know that if it is a stable, then this particular term, this magnitude can be taken inside like this way, and this should be less than infinity. That means magnitude of the entire transfer function should be less than infinity. That is the condition of stability in the Z domain. Okay, for Z equal to 1 will be a point in the ROC. That means Z equal to 1 is the nothing but a unit circle, and it should be within the ROC. Remember that. That means for a stable DT system, ROC should include the unit circle. Remember, a system is stable or not, which can be understood by drawing the ROC of it. First, find out if the impulse response is given to you. First, take the impulse response, get the transfer function by Z transforming it. After Z transforming, you are getting the capital HZ, and find out the ROC of the capital HZ by using the earlier methods. If it is the finite duration right-handed signal, or finite duration left-handed signal, infinite duration right-handed, infinite duration left-handed, as I mentioned all the cases earlier, you can obtain the ROC of that signal and check that whether that ROC is including the unit circle or not. That means draw the unit circle and check that whether it is falling within the ROC or not. If it is falling within the ROC, then you can say system is stable. If it is outside of the ROC, then you can conclude system will be unstable. That is the procedure of checking whether a system is stable or not. Okay. General condition for stability in the Z domain: pole should lie inside the unit circle, as I mentioned, and unit circle should included in the ROC. Okay. So remember, unit circle should be included in the ROC and pole should lie within the unit circle. These two are the conditions. Now you can find out the relationship between the Laplace and Z transforms. Very easy to find out. Suppose you have a continuous time signal like this xt, okay, and now you have train of pulses pt, train of delta functions having the amplitudes of 1 all, and now multiply them. It is the train of pulses, summation of n equal to minus infinity up to n, delta t minus nt. See that if you put n equal to 0, it is the delta t. If you put n equal to 1, delta will be shifted here. N equal to 2, delta will be shifted here. N equal to 3, delta will be shifted here. In this way, all of them are added. That means right side signal is formed. And if you put n equal to minus 1, delta will be shifted here. N equal to minus 2, delta will be shifted here. In this way, you can have all these left-handed trains of pulse. So adding all of them, you will get this train of pulses, okay, in finite duration. Now simply multiply them. Okay, so if you multiply them, what will happen? This particular pulses will have the values at these points only, okay, and all other points in between 0 and t, in between t and 2t, these points have the value of 0. Okay, so if you multiply this signal with this one, what will happen? It will take the samples of these signals at these points. Okay, now n starting from minus infinity up to plus infinity, x nt delta t n minus 1. That will be that. It is the sampling theorem. Now Laplace transform this sampled signal. This sampled signal is nothing but the xn actually. So Laplace transform this capital XP S. Okay, so you are Laplace transforming this signal. If you do that, see that these are the constant terms. It is not having the small t or time variable. So this integral of the Laplace transformation can be taken inside. That means Laplace transformation of this delta function only. So if you do the Laplace transform of this delta function, it will give you just e to the power minus n s capital T. You can verify from the Laplace transform method. Okay, so it will be that, and this one can be written in this way. You have taken e to the power st to the power minus n. Okay, this minus n can be taken out, and from that you can write if you write e to the power of st equal to z, you will obtain this one. Okay, actually you know that the sampled version of any continuous time signal is nothing but the xn. Okay, that means this is nothing but the xn, and if you do the Z transformation of this signal, you will obtain this one. Okay, it is nothing but the same thing. If you compare, then you can find the impulse invariant transformation, this one. That means Z is equal to e to the power st. In the Laplace transformation, if you put in place of e to the power st equal to z, then you will get the Z transformation. Or in Z transformation, if you put in place of z e to the power st, you will obtain the Laplace transformation. It is a relationship in between them, and it is also called impulse invariant transformation. Okay, this is all about the Z transformation theory part, and you have to carry out the problems from the book of Nagorkani in order to prepare this particular chapter entirely. Thank you.